The War of the Gods is in the past, and now Lin Feng could be at peace with his wife and daughter. Everything seemed fine until Lin finds out that they are being bullied. He feels useless without being able to do anything since he is in a deep sleep in a wheelchair. The story begins with a little girl swinging the swing. This child is the daughter of our main character Lin Feng. She told her father that her teacher asked him why he didn't go to the meeting, so she warned the teacher that her father was an ancient god of war, but due to his injuries he could no longer move, and was paralyzed in a wheelchair. Because of this, his daughter was often bullied. His wife also suffered some teasing and his daughter had to watch her secretly cry at night. The girl really wanted Lin to regain consciousness as soon as possible. Lin saw her daughter's tears as she looked at him hopefully. Suddenly, the girl had to move away from her father when a boy her age appeared next to her, and shouted that she was crying again. The girl didn't intend to leave her mess, but the bully looked at her with contempt, and said the rumors that the girl's mother took advantage of a crippled man. Such disgusting and untrue words made Ray very angry, so she immediately jumped off the swing, and approached Zhou Xiao, who the girl was furious and yelled at the aggressor, that if he dared to insult her parents again, he would receive a punishment. Because of Ray's reaction, the bully pushed her to the ground. Xiao, who was bigger than the girl, so the push was quite strong. In addition, there was still a swing behind her, and the girl hit her head. The bully rejoiced in the pain of others and even spat on the little girl. Ray felt helpless and held the grass in his hands angrily. While Xiaowu said that she was a small animal, in the end the girl couldn't stand the insults, and as she attacked the guy biting her hand, the bully's parents were nearby, and when the boy's mother saw that her son was being attacked, she hurried to intervene. The woman kicked Ray and shouted that the girl was a brute, who had no education. Ray found herself on the ground again. But now, she looked angrily at the woman who was behaving worse than her son. This woman picked the girl off the ground, ignoring her screams, and carried her towards Yahoo. After the woman let go of Ray, she started screaming for the girl to kneel down and immediately apologize. Our protagonist was sitting in a wheelchair, and his internal energy began to boil from such injustice to his daughter. Anger and the desire to protect filled the man as he looked at Ray. The daughter didn't understand why she should apologize to the boy who started cursing him. At that moment, Xiaolu's father intervened in this fight. The man grabbed the girl by the ponytail and pulled hard, ordering her to apologize to his son. Ray continued to resist the two adults and received a lap from the woman. Xiao's mother looked at the girl as if she was nothing but trash, and asked if she was sure of her words. The protagonist's daughter knew well that her opponents were far superior, but she stubbornly refused to bow to them. Suddenly Xiao's father waved his hand at Ray, and shouted that he would teach her a good lesson today. But to the great surprise of all parties to the conflict, the protagonist stopped the man's hand. Lin held the man and asked him how he dared to touch his daughter. On that day, our hero finally regained his powers, and declared that from now on anyone who touched his daughter would be beheaded. Initially, Shouhu's father was feeling superior, but now it seemed that his life was hanging by a thread. From that day on, Lin had no intention of allowing anyone to humiliate his family. He pinned the guy to the ground while Shouhu and the mother watched helplessly. The woman was very worried about her husband, and tried to figure out how she could help him. Then she went to Lin, and beat him, screaming not to dare to touch her husband. The woman even threatened, saying that she would call the police immediately. Lin did not allow the woman to finish her threat, because she was thrown back by the force with which he slapped her. At that moment, she fell on the grass, and Lin reminded her that she hit her daughter. The hero was filled with rage, and ordered them to remember this day because he spared their lives despite the fact that they messed with his daughter. Lin begins to remember his battles he fought alone against a large number of soldiers. The last warrior was breathing hard, and his whole body was covered in abrasions. The protagonist unexpectedly heard someone say that he could single-handedly motivate an army of 10,000 people. Lin quickly turned his gaze to his voice, and saw that more warriors were landing in front of him. They say they wouldn't let the protagonist win so easily. One of the soldiers looked at Lin and admitted that he was really worthy of the title, but today, he is destined to depart at the hands of the Seven Sons of the Western Alliance. Such a confident statement from his opponents made Lin smile slightly, after which he raised his spear and shouted that he had been fighting for 6 years, and did not Think he should be afraid of them? The leader of the Western Alliance hastened to attack him. The warriors had different types of weapons, and jumped, giving him no chance to survive, but Lin dodged the blade. Unfortunately, the handle of the spear hit her body. The protagonist was still able to throw out one of the members of the Western Alliance with the help of a spear. The leader had a weapon in his hands, and was behind the prota. He was sure that it would deal him a fatal blow. Lin had to act very quickly to repel someone else's attack. The spear pierced the enemy's body. The leader began to pour red liquid from his mouth. He himself could not believe that such a thing was possible. Lin explained to the enemy that he was very weak, and even with an army of 10,000 people, he would not move him a meter back. At this moment, the 3 remaining members of the alliance were only a meter away. Lin immediately made several cuts and told the warriors to blame themselves for the loss. Lin's spear movements were so fast and confident that the warriors didn't even have time to react. Only at the last moment did they understand that now the end would come for them, and there was nothing they could do with Lin's strong blows. At this moment, the protagonist again stood alone on the battlefield and believed that, if it brought order to the country, then everything would be calm at home. After the active part of the fighting ended, the protagonist realized that he was very injured. Lin's eyes were closing, but he knew that he could not leave, because his daughter still needed a bone marrow transplant. At that moment, he returned to the present by the voice of Ray, who constantly called to him and clung to his father's legs. The man was very happy to see his daughter. He held Ray in his arms, and the girl could not believe that this was really her father. The protagonist promised to eliminate Xiaohu's entire family, if they did not bow 100 times. The family quickly bowed, and with each bow they apologized, saying that they had made a mistake. Ray cried loudly when he said that everyone around him hated his father. But the protagonist promised that he would no longer allow them to harm his family. Ray continued to cry and complain that no one believed her about Lin being a hero. The man heard his daughter but was distracted when he realized that her body had not fully recovered. Lin was upset and knew he needed to wake up to protect the family. The girl immediately noticed that it was difficult for her father and asked him to let her downstairs, obeyed and carefully placed the girl on the ground. The hero tried to convince her that she was fine. He stroked her head and called her to go home. At that moment, Ray told her that her grandmother kicked them out of the house, and forbade them to return home because her mother had to talk to Uncle Sunday. The protagonist frowned and realized that there was some kind of catch on this. Ray leaned over to his father and whispered to him to pretend to be asleep again. Lin smiled at his daughter and said that she suggested a good idea. Then, the man went back to the wheelchair to carry out his plan. Ray immediately started screaming that he went back to being like this, because Geskawa's family assaulted him. Ray turned to the frightened couple and said that he was going after his uncle, and then it would be the end. The girl began to push her father towards the house, and Shurti's parents believed that they wanted to demand compensation from them for the damages of the platform. After some time, the protagonist and his daughter finally met in front of the main entrance of the house. There was a blonde woman in the hallway who was very unhappy with her appearance, so she immediately left, insulting Ray. She reminded the little girl that she didn't allow her to bring Lin back until she called them. Ray hid behind the wheelchair and bravely admitted to her grandmother that she and her father were very tired. The woman didn't want to listen to her and angrily ordered her to shut up. Then she pointed to Lin and yelled at Ray not to dare to call this cripple his father. The girl continued to insist that she would call him father. Suddenly Ray heard a strange male voice that said it would be an honor for him to spend his life with Xin. After that, the tall man left the house. The protagonist became gloomy when his daughter whispered that that man was the one from Uncle's son that her mother had spoken to. The protagonist's wife was called Xin. She was a young and beautiful girl who seemed upset. She said that she wanted to consider her marriage proposal. Sun allowed the girl to think about it a little more, but he was confident that he would make a good impression on her. Sun turned around and saw that a girl and a man were standing in the yard right in front of him. He realized that that girl was Xin's daughter. So Sun went down to the girl and started patting her cheeks, saying how cute the girl was. At that moment, Xian's mother told her to accompany Sun to the door, but the protagonist's wife refused. Ray's grandmother ran after the man to find out how the meeting went, leaving her daughter upset. Ray, after observing the situation, whispered to his father that this man wanted to steal Xin from them. At that moment the mother came to Ray, so with all care and tenderness she took her little hands. Xin thanked Ray for taking care of her father today. The little girl started to cry and ask her mother if she was really looking for a new father. But Ixin promised that this would not happen. While wiping her daughter's tears, she noticed a mark on her face. Then, the woman asked if her daughter had really fought with someone again. The girl didn't want to bother her mother, so she lied, saying that she ended up falling. After that, Xin took the protagonist and his daughter home. After returning to the house, Ray was sent to his room and his parents were left alone. Xin sat on the bed in front of Lin and tried to figure out what was the right thing to do in this situation. The protagonist was wondering if his wife knew that he had woken up. At that moment, his wife says that she knew that he cannot hear her and is not conscious, but she wanted to tell him something. These words of the girl made Lin worry even more. At that moment, he had to make an effort not to give himself up. Xin gently stroked her husband's hair and said with tears in her eyes that Ray was saved when he sacrificed himself. But she wanted her daughter to have a strong and happy family. At this moment, Shin reveals with tears in her eyes that she was ready to marry Sun if he treated their daughter well. It wasn't easy for Shin to make this decision. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for the next part. Let's hit our goal of 100 likes. Your support means the world. Smash that like button and stay tuned for more epic content.